Some stories are too heavy to tell straight. They come out sideways, sometimes as fiction, sometimes as metaphor, sometimes as myth. Welcome back to Read with Rahmat, the space where we read between the lines of literature and life. And today, we're unpacking one of the hardest but most necessary questions. How can invented stories tell emotional truths that real life often silence? This episode, Trauma, Memory and Meaning, is about how fiction helps us process pain, how storytelling becomes a mirror, a balm, and sometimes a survival strategy. So now, let's get into it. Let's start with trauma. Trauma is what happens when life shatters faster than our mind can make sense of. It is the story that breaks before it can be told. The psychiatrist Cathy Carrot once wrote that trauma isn't just the event itself, it is the failure to process it when it happens. That is why flashback, intrusive thoughts, and nightmare feels like memory that refuse to line up chronically. The beginning, middle, and end into one eternal now. Trauma is anti-narrative. It resists word. That's why survivors often say, I can't talk about it, or when they do, the story sounds fragmented, contradictory, detached. So this is where fiction steps in. When truth is too sharp to touch directly, storytelling becomes a form of handling it indirectly, and it is symbolically safe. It built the bridge language couldn't. Memory is not a filing cabinet, it's a storyteller. Unreliable, emotional, always revising the script. When trauma hits, the memory malfunction, it stores the pain, not in word, but in sensation, smells, in sound, in muscle tension. It lives in the body before it ever reaches language. Writers like Toni Morrison, Kazuo Ishiguro, and Tim O'Brien captured this perfectly. Their characters remember in fragments, in image, in symbols. A smell becomes a whole decade. A single object carries an internal grief. A smell, a place shapes the whole situation, shapes the whole experience. Fiction is like a laboratory. Psychologists call this narrative integration, transforming fragmented memories into stories. To write or read fiction then is to reorder the experience, to give your pain a sequence, and in doing so, a shape. Once trauma is given shape in story, something alchemical happens. It doesn't erase the pain, but it sort of transforms it. Storytelling gives us distance, metaphor, and language. It allows us to hold our suffering without drowning in them. Think of We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. Think of Elie Wiesel's Night, where horror is rendered in the stillness of prose. Fiction turns private agony into shared understanding. It's the same impulse behind myths. It gives form to pain so it can be carried collectively. Hitting the nail on the head, but fiction allows us to confront them indirectly. The art is filtered through invented character, alternative timeline, metaphor. That distance gives both the writer and the reader room to breathe. Through fiction, we can feel empathy safely. Our brain mirrors the emotion of the character literally. Neuropsychologists call this the mirror neuron effect. Reading emotional fiction activates the same neutral paths involving empathy and moral reasoning. So when we cry for fiction people, we are really practicing compassion for the real ones, including ourselves. Fiction is a therapy without lights, dialogue, and emotional safety built in. But beyond individual healing, fiction performs cultural therapy. Stories about war, slavery, migration, abuse, from beloved to a grain of wheat, preserve collective pain. They keep history alive, not as data but as empathy. Literature transforms suffering into moral consciousness. It's how society remembers. It's how silence becomes speech. When we read the stories, we aren't escaping, we are participating in cultural repair. Fiction helps us process pain because trauma destroys narrative and storytelling rebuilds it. Memory fragments, fiction reassembles it, pain isolates, fiction connects it. It is not escapism, it's architecture for survival. We tell stories not to forget what hurt us, but to live with it differently, to accept it, to welcome it. And that is it today on Read with Rahmat. Thank you for sitting with this one quietly and bravely. Tell me, which book helped you make sense of something you couldn't say out loud, something that has you on chokehold, something that had so much hold on you? You can share your thoughts with me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok at Read with Rahmat. And until next time, may your mind be gentle, your books be open, and your heart stay curious.